Chapter 69 of Jin Ping Mei Chongzhen edition of Embroidered Portraits. Mrs. Lin was first transferred to the Zhaoshuan mansion, and Wang Sangwan was frightened away from Lichen Court. The word says, the cigarette smoke curls up, and the curtains with silk curtains and silk curtains are beautiful. The scenery is good, the golden hairpin is tilted, the phoenix is upside down. I suddenly feel that I am on Penglai Island, and it is not a small chance to meet each other. The fate is not small, the most cheerful place. The eyebrows are lightly swept. It is said that Diane and Wen's sister-in-law arrived home and Ping said, Dad is in the house opposite. He went in to report. Simon King was sitting with Wen Shukai in the study. When he saw Dan, he immediately came out and sat down in the small guest area. Diane said, Wen's sister-in-law has been called and is waiting outside. Simon King immediately ordered, tell him to come in. Then Wen's sister-in-law quietly opened the warm curtain, went inside, and kowtowed to Simon King. Simon King said, Sister-in-law Wen, I haven't seen you for a long time. Sister-in-law Wen said, I have a little daughter-in-law. Simon King said, where have you moved now? Sister-in-law Wen said, my little daughter-in-law unfortunately got into a lawsuit. I abandoned my old house and now live in Wangjia Lane. Dan and Shu. Simon King said, get up and talk. Mrs. Na Wen stood beside her. Simon King ordered everyone to go out. Ping and Hua Tong were hiding outside the corner door to wait on them. Only Diana Shadow was listening outside the curtain. Simon King asked, which adults' houses do you often hang out in? Sister-in-law Wen said, it's the royal family's house on the street, Mr. Zhou's house and the garrison house, the royal family of Qiao, Zhong'er's father, and Xia's father's house. Familiar, Simon King said. You don't recognize Wang Zhaoshuan's house? Sister-in-law Wen said, my wife is a regular customer. My wife and Sanyang often take care of my huakui. Simon King said, you are. We know each other. I have something to ask you. Don't stop me. He took out 5 taels of silver from his sleeve and said to him quietly, how can you find a way to get him like this? Madam, I'll hang with you for a while. I'll thank you. After hearing this, Mrs. Wen laughed and said, who told me to come? Simon King said, as the saying goes, who told me to come? The name of a person is the shadow of a tree. How could I not know it? Sister-in-law Wen said, speaking of my wife, she is a pig this year. She is 35 years old. She is a fine woman. She is very smart. Just like a 30-year-old man. Although he is doing this business, he is so meticulous. Wherever he goes, many companions will follow him. The rumor about this person is false, but his family is in a large courtyard, and the third father is not there for a while, so he can hide away without anyone noticing. It would be okay if the young daughter-in-law lives in a narrow house and dares to cause this problem. Even if my daughter-in-law doesn't dare to accept the money, she would rather just accept it and tell my wife. Simon King said, if you don't accept it, it will make me angry. I'll give you some more silks to wear. Sister-in-law Wen said, what's wrong with you, old man? The master looked at me in disbelief. He kowtowed, took the money, and said, please wait for me, little wife. Tell your wife to come back to your old man's house. Simon King said, you just have to do it. I'll wait here. When you come, just come here. I won't let the servant go. I know, not tomorrow, only the day after tomorrow. I'll come in the morning or evening after asking for instructions. Dan said, Sister-in-law Wen, it's up to you. I only want you a tael of silver, and I'll ask you to do it. You don't have to eat alone. Sister-in-law Wen said, the hosen was plundering the sieve dustpan across the wall, and he didn't know how to lift it up and close it. Come on. So he went out and got on the donkey, and kept riding on the donkey with his son in the cage. Simon King and Wen Shukai sat together for a long time. When Jia Tixing came, he crowned himself and went to have a drink with Luo Tongji in the mansion named Luo Wangxiang. He didn't come home until after the lamp was turned on. Let's say that sister-in-law Wen was overjoyed when she got home with Simon King's 5 taels of silver and sent the tea party away. In the afternoon, I walked to Wang Zhaoshuan's mansion, met Mrs. Lin, and said my best wishes. Mrs. Lin asked, why don't you come and see me these 2 days? Mrs. Wen told Mrs. Lin about the tea party at home and the time to burn incense on the top of the house in time for the 12th lunar month. Mrs. Lin said, your son is going. You just don't want to go. Sister-in-law Wen said. How can I go? I just asked Wen Zhongtang to bring incense on my behalf. Mrs. Lin said. I will send some to you when the time comes. I'll give it to you. Sister-in-law Wen said. Thank you, madam, for your charity. After saying that, Mrs. Lin asked him to come over to the fire and the maid brought some tea. While Mrs. Wen was having tea, she asked, Third father is not at home. Mrs. Lin said, he didn't go home for 2 more nights and only rested inside. He stayed with this group of people every day, only sleeping with flowers. What should I do if I leave my daughter-in-law, who is like a flower branch, in the room? Sister-in-law Wen asked again. Why is Sanyang missing? Mrs. Lin said, he is still in the room. When Mrs. Wen saw that there was no one around, she said, it doesn't matter, madam. Don't worry, my little daughter-in-law has a connection. So I broke up the group. The third father was relieved and didn't go into the hospital anymore. Madam tolerated my little daughter-in-law. So she dared to say it. Don't dare to say it if it's not allowed. Mrs. Lin said, what do you mean? I won't let you do it. It's okay if you just say it. Sister-in-law Wen said, Dad, Simon in front of the county gate. Nowadays, there are thousands of households in Tixingyuan who are in charge of punishment, and the official debts have been released at home. And 4 or 5 shops have been opened, a satin shop, a herbal medicine shop, a silk shop, and a wool shop. There are about dozens of clerks and supervisors in Dongping Mansion. Tei Shikai from Tokyo is his godfather. Lieutenant Zhu is his guardian. Butler Zai is his relative. The governor and governor are all friends with him. And it goes without saying that the prefect and county magistrate are his family members. There are endless streets in Chongzhen. Rice is rotting into warehouses. And besides the eldest lady, the daughter of Wu Qianhu, the left guard of King, who fills the house and takes him as his stepmother. There are also 5 or 6 people who are only the head of the house and wear robes. The following singers and dancers have no less than 10 concubines. They eat cold food every morning and eat lantern festival every night. My father is not older than 31 or 2 years old. Turtles are accustomed to playing with customs. Zhuanglu chess is all-encompassing. Qiuju is all-knowing. All the masters know how to break down the Taoist characters at a glance. Our family has been around for generations and has a very strong foundation. I also saw that my third father was studying martial arts and wanted to come to meet him. However, he had never met before, so it was not easy to come. I also wanted to come to pay my respects to my wife. The young daughter-in-law said, It's our first meeting. How can I meet you so suddenly? I'll ask for permission from the old lady to invite you to meet me now. He kept going back and forth, and I just asked him to cut off these people, so as not to disgrace our family. Mrs. Lin was fascinated by Wen's words, and her feelings were already roused. So she approached Wenner. She said, We are strangers to each other. How can we meet suddenly? Sister-in-law Wen said, It doesn't matter. Wait until I tell my father. All I said is that my wife first asked him to go to the criminal court to file a complaint against the third father for seducing him. This person, please invite Dad to come and have a private meeting in advance. What's wrong with this? Mrs. Lin was so happy that she agreed to wait for him the next day. Sister-in-law Wen asked the woman for permission to return home. And at dinner time the next day, she came to Simon King's house. Simon King was sitting in the academy across the street when Diane suddenly announced, Sister-in-law Wen is here. Upon hearing this, Simon King immediately left the small guest seats and ordered the curtains to be lowered. After a long time, Mrs. Wen entered the room, kowtowed, and walked out after knowing the situation. Mrs. Wen then told Mrs. Lin what she wanted to say. She praised my father for his character and family, how he got to know the officials, how he was generous with his wealth, and how he was romantic. He was absolutely convinced. He agreed that tomorrow night, the third father would not be at home. We set up a banquet at home and met in secret on the pretext of favor. Simon King was filled with joy after hearing this. He also ordered Diane to reward him with 2 bolts of silk. Sister-in-law Wen said, Dad is leaving tomorrow, so it's already early. When the lights are turned on and the street is quiet, I go to the food alley where his back door is. There is a house next to his back door, Dwayne's mother, and I'm waiting at his house. Dad just asked the official to open the door. and I came out to lead him into the harbor without letting anyone know about it." "I know," Simon King said. After that, Mrs. Wen said her goodbyes and went out, returning to talk to Lin. On the day of Simon's celebration, I went back to Li Zhao's room to rest for the whole night. I can't wait for the next day to cultivate my spirit. At noon, wearing a white Chongzhen scarf, I rode with Earl Ying to Zixi family for a birthday drink. There were 2 singers at the table. Simon King had a few glasses of wine, asked the host to come over, and then skipped the table and walked out. He mounted his horse and was followed by 2 young men, Dian and Qin Tong. It was about the 19th, and the moonlight was hazy, passing by the street with a veil of eyes, and walked directly to the back door of Wang Zhaoxuan's mansion in Bianchi Lane. It was only then that the lights were turned on, after the crowds on the street became quiet for the first time. Simon King was half a house away from his back door, reined in his horse, and ordered Diane to go to his mother's house first. It turned out that this mother lived in the back room of Wang Zhaoxuan's house and was recommended by Mrs. Wen. She guarded the back door morning and night, opening and closing doors, but he entered Hong Kong and settled in his home. Mrs. Wen heard the door slam in his room and opened it quickly. Seeing Simon King coming, Simon King, who was waiting at the back door, got off his horse, took off his gauze, brought him in, told the piano boy to take the horse, and went to the opposite door to wait, under the eaves of the west side of the house. Diane was in Dwayne's mother's house. "Stay here," as Mrs. Wen invited Simon King in. She closed the back door, bolted it, and entered through the double passage. After turning round the group room on the first floor, there are 5 main rooms where the wife lives. The door next to it is closed. Mrs. Wen knocked lightly on the door knocker, and it turned out that something clicked. After a while, a maid came out and opened her doors. Sister-in-law Wen guided Simon King to the back hall, opened the curtain, and saw bright lights inside. On the front was a picture of his grandfather, Wang Jingchong, Prince of Banyang County, Taiyuan Jidu, wearing bright red sleeves, a python robe and a jade belt, sitting on a tiger skin chair and reading the Book of War. There is a statue of King Guan, but his beard is shorter. There are 3 words J.E. Hall written on the vermilion plaque at the entrance, and a couplet written in official script on the 2 walls. Heirloom family integrity is the same as pines and bamboo. S. And service to the country is the same as Dushan. While Simon King Zheng was watching, he could only hear the ringing of bells on the door curtain. Mrs. Wen took out a cup of tea and drank it with Simon King. Simon King said, "Please come out to see the old lady." Sister-in-law Wen said, "Please let me have some tea with you. I just told my wife about it." Unexpectedly, Mrs. Lin secretly looked out from the door curtain and saw Simon King's figure, a majestic, handsome figure, wearing a white satin crown of loyalty, sable warm ears, purple cashmere crane cloak, and foundation-soaked boots. He is, "The rich and many are deceitful and evil, and they oppress the good and deceive the good, drunken and lustful." Mrs. Lin was filled with joy when she saw him, so she quietly called Mrs. Wen over and asked him whose mourning hat he was wearing. Sister-in-law Wen said, "This is the filial piety of his 6th wife, who has been gone for a while in the past 9 months. Rao Shasha, there is still a slap in the house now. He is an old man, can't you see? A quail out of a cage. He is also a fast fighter." After hearing this, the woman became even more happy. Sister-in-law Wen urged him to go out, but the woman said, "How can I go out because I'm so shy? Please ask him to come in." Sister-in-law Wen walked out and said to Simon King, "Madam, please come to see me in my room." Then she hurriedly opened the door curtain. When Simon King entered the room, he saw the curtains were hanging red, the felt maoyu was covering the floor, the scent of musk orchid was fragrant, and the air was as warm as spring. On the embroidered couch, the tents are covered with clouds, and on the brocade screen, the moon reflects the Zhuanyuan sky. The woman wears a crown of gold silk and green leaves on her head, a wide silk coat of white damask, a crane cloak of agar-wood-colored satin with gold ornaments all over the ground, a wide skirt of bright red palace brocade, and high-soled stork white damask shoes. She is just a lustful girl in the pavilion, a bodhisattva in the boudoir. There is poetry to prove it. The clouds are thick and greasy with long black marks, and the lotus steps move lightly with the fragrance of blue and musk. After being drunk and deeply in love, I returned to the embroidered tent and realized that my wife was unusual. When Simon King saw him, he bowed and saluted, and said, "Madam, please turn up and I will pay my respects to the students." Lin said, "Your Excellency, please excuse me." Simon King refused, so he kowtowed to the side and bowed twice. The woman also reciprocated the courtesy. After paying homage, Simon King sat down on the chair in front of him, and Mrs. Lin was combing her back and leaning against the bed to accompany her. Mrs. Lin had already closed the front door, and there was no servant behind. The corner door on the third young master's side is also closed. A little maid named Furong brought tea. Mrs. Lin had tea with Simon King. Aunt Wen stood by and said, "My wife has heard that my father is in charge of the punishment. How dare my little daughter-in-law invite my father to come and ask for trouble? I don't know if Dad will comply or not." Simon King said, "I wonder what the old lady has to say." Lin said, "To be honest, sir, although the Han family has been doing this for generations, unfortunately the husband passed away a long time ago. He has little savings. His son is young and well-educated and has never taken the exam. Although he is currently studying martial arts, there are some treacherous and unscrupulous people outside. I want to file a complaint with the public, but I am afraid that it will be a disgrace to my late husband's reputation. I dare to ask you to come to Han's house to express my feelings today. Just like submitting a complaint, open it, let the child change his ways, specialize in meritorious service, and inherit the legacy of his ancestors. I am very grateful to you, and I should express my gratitude." Simon King said, "Why did the old lady say this? The noble family has been a member of the royal family for generations. The son has entered the martial arts school and is working hard to inherit his ancestral martial arts. Unexpectedly, he listens to the coaxing of Shin Shi and lingers over flowers and wine, which is exactly what the young man ordered. In the Yemen, these people should be punished immediately, so that they can prevent the future." After hearing this, the woman quickly stood up and said blessings to Simon King, and said, "I would like to express my gratitude to you." Simon King said, "You? Why would I say this?" As they spoke, they looked at each other affectionately. After a while, Mrs. Wen put the wine on the table, and Simon King deliberately said, "Goodbye. This student has just come to visit me, but he has never brought any gifts. How can he inherit the old lady's kindness and stay here?" Mrs. Lin said, "I don't know where you are, sir. No preparations have been made. We have a glass of water and wine in the cold weather, indicating that we are ready." The maid sifted the wine, poured the wine into the golden pot, and stored the delicacies in the jade cup. Mrs. Lin stood up and brought the wine. Simon King also came down from the table and said, "I'll give the old lady a drink first." Sister-in-law Wen interrupted and said, "Dad, don't give me the wine. This November 15 is my wife's birthday. Just come and celebrate your birthday with your wife that day." Simon King said, "As you said earlier, today is the 9th day of the lunar month. I will come to celebrate my birthday with my wife later. How dare you trouble your lord?" In a moment, there were 16 bowls of delicacies in large plates and large bowls. The red candles were burning high on the side, and the golden stove was lighting the fire. They handed over a cup, guessed the order, and laughed at the rain and the clouds. Wine is the courage of lust. When the lotus clock has sunk, and the moon is reflected in the window, a pair of bamboo leaves pierce the heart, and the two are already moved. When Sao has passed by, and she has called for wine, but no one has come. Simon King saw that there was no one around, so he gradually urged her to sit down, and said something quite obscene. And when he pinched her wrist, he touched her shoulder and rubbed her arms. At first, he hugged her neck playfully, and the woman smiled but did not say anything. Then he opened her red lips, and Simon King stuck his tongue into her mouth, smacking her lips, and laughed and talked intimately. The woman then closed the door, took off her clothes and loosened her belt, slightly opened a brocade curtain, and spread the embroidered quilt lightly. The mandarin duck pillow was across the bed, and the phoenix-scented quilt was incense. They were close to each other's jade bodies and hugged their breasts. It turned out that Simon King knew that the woman was fond of sex, so he brought a sex tool with him at home and took the Hu monk's medicine. The woman felt that his penis was very big, and Simon King also touched her vulva, and they were both happy and excited. spreading the monkey arms. You can't feel the butterflies and bees' frenzy, crossing the jade legs. That person is shy. It is just like this. He is used to being a playboy, so he doesn't care about the jade hairpin falling from the bed. Simon King then used all his skills to entangle the woman. He lingered until late at night, and then ejaculated. The woman's hair was disheveled, and she looked haggard and tired. The two of them hugged each other for a while, then got up and dressed. The woman turned on the silver lamp, opened the door, looked in the mirror, and asked the maid to bring water to wash her hands. She drank fragrant wine again and persuaded her to drink more. After 3 cups, Simon King said goodbye and got up. The woman kept asking him to stay, and repeatedly urged him to stay. Simon King bowed and accepted the promise, thanked her for her trouble, and said goodbye to her. The woman sent him to the corner gate and went back. When Cao opened the back door first, called Diane and Kintong to bring the horses over, and rode home. The street had already been ringing the bell, and it was quiet at midnight. There was only frost all day, and everything was silent. Simon King went home and didn't talk for the whole night. The next day, Simon King went to the Yamen to distribute the money. He called the local police officers in the back hall and ordered them to do the following. Look for the 3rd son of Wang Zhaoxuan's mansion. See if there is anyone who seduces him. Find out the names of the people in the courtyard and report to me. He said to Jia Tixing. The 3rd son of Wang is a bad student. Yesterday, his mother repeatedly asked people to tell me that it was not his son's fault, but that he was seduced by this bachelor. If he is not severely punished now, he will seduce other people's children in the future. Jia Tixing said. The superior is right. He must be punished. The police officers followed Simon King's instructions and found out the names of the people on the same day. They beat the case and came to Simon King's house in the afternoon to present the notice. Simon King saw that there were Sun Guozhui, Zhu Xinian, Xiao Zhangshan, Nai Yuir, Xiang San, Yu Quan, Bai Huizi, and the wives were Li Guiji and Qin Yuzhir. Simon King took a pen and erased the names of Li Guiji, Qin Yuzhir, Lao Sun, and Zhu Xinian, and ordered, I will arrest these 5 bachelors including Xiao Zhangxian and bring them to the government office tomorrow morning. The officials agreed and went down. At night, they learned that Wang Sangwan and others were drinking and playing with their clothes at Li Guiji's house, so they ambushed at the door of the room. At midnight, as soon as they dispersed, the officials arrested Xiao Zhangxian, Nai Yu, Yu Quan, Bai Huizi, and Xiang Sanwu. Sun Guozi and Zhu Xinian went to the back room of Li Guiji, and Wang Sangwan hid under Li Guiji's bed and dared not come out. Guiji's family was frightened and sweated, not knowing where he was from, so they asked people to find out the truth. Wang Sangwan hid all night and dared not come out. Li's brothel owner was afraid that the Tokyo would come to arrest him, so at 5 o'clock in the morning, he urged Li Ming to change his clothes and send Wang Sangwan home. The police arrested Xiao Zhang and others and hung them in the hearing room for a night. The next morning, Simon King went to the Yamen with Jia Tixing to the hall. On both sides, the punishment sticks were lined up and they led people up. Each person was beaten with 20 sticks, and their skin and flesh were torn apart, blood gushed out, and the sound shook the sky, and they wailed and wailed. Simon King instructed, I think you are a bachelor who seduces other people's children to have affairs in the courtyard and does not abide by your duties. You should be severely punished, but I will punish you lightly. If you fall into my hands again, I will definitely put you in shackles and put you in front of the courtyard gate. He ordered his left and right. Fork it. Everyone looked out, and those with gold and water fate were doomed to die. After the 2 officials finished their work, they retired to the hall to have tea. Jia Tixing said, Yesterday, my relative Chui Zhongshu in Beijing wrote to me, saying that the inspection report from the government office has been submitted, but it has not come down yet. Today, I met with the superiors, so we can send someone to ask Lin Kingfeng, a colleague in Huiking Prefecture, for information. He is close to Beijing. Simon King said, the superiors are very clear. He called the runner-up and ordered, I will give you 5 cents of silver for travel expenses and take her to visiting cards to go to Lin Qianhu, the father of the Huiking Prefecture, the chief judge, to inquire about the inspection report from Beijing and see if the experience office has sent a notice. Be sure to find out the truth and report back." The man took the silver and visiting card, went to the office to pack his luggage, asked for a horse, and set off. The two officials then got up and went home. But Xiao Zhang and others were beaten out of the court of the chief judge. On the way, each of them was thinking, and they didn't expect that they had suffered this loss today. And they blamed each other. Xiao Zhangxian asked, "Could it be news from Tokyo?" Bai Huizi said, "No, if it was news from there, how could he let Su Fang off so easily?" As the saying goes, the most obedient person is a singer, the most thief is a silversmith, and the most capable person is a brawler. Nai Yuir said immediately, "You don't know, only I can guess. This must be because Ximon Guanfu and Sangwan are angry and want to invite his cousin. So they are taking advantage of me. It is true. The dragon fights and the tiger is injured, and the little deer suffers." Xiao Zhangxian said, "You are fine, but I am the one who suffers. Sun Guizhui and Zhu Mazi followed them and just took the blame for me." Yu Quan said, "Why are you talking nonsense? Those two are his friends. If they are made to kneel on the ground and he sits on it, how can they get along?" Xiao Zhangxian said, "Why? Don't you want to take his wife?" Nai Yu said, "Both wives are his sweethearts. Li Guiji is his cousin, so he is willing to take her. Don't blame others. It's our bad luck that we got caught in this trap." Why didn't Kaijia say anything? But he did. This shows that he is in love. Now we are going to Li Guiji's house to look for Wang Sangwan. Didn't I get the sore on his butt for nothing? That's fine. Just ask him for a few taels of silver for travel expenses, and don't let your wife at home laugh at you. So they went straight into the brothel and saw that the door of Li Guiji's house was like an iron barrel. After calling for a long time, the maid asked through the door who it was. Xiao Zhang said casually, "It's us, looking for Sangwan to talk to." The maid replied, "He went home at midnight that day and is not here. No one is at home, so we dare not open the door." The crowd had to go back and went to Wang Zhaoxuan's house and sat down in his guest room. When Wang Sangwan heard that everyone was looking for him, he was frightened and hid in the room and dared not come out. After half a day, he sent the servant Yangding to say, "My father is not at home." Everyone said, "What a carefree person. If he is not at home, where did he go? We can't call him." Yu Quan said, "I will tell you the truth. Don't put it off in your sleep or dream. Just now, the judicial court beat me and brought me out. Now we want him to be seen by the officials." He held up his legs to show Yangding and asked him to go inside and said, "What's the big deal about beating me for you?" Everyone lay on the stool and cried out in pain. Wang Sangwan was even more afraid to come out and just cried, "Mother, what's wrong? Please help me." Lin said, "I'm a woman. How can I ask for favors to save her?" After begging for half a day, he saw that everyone outside was waiting anxiously and wanted to ask the old lady to talk. Lin didn't go out again, but said through the screen, "Wait for him for a while. He is at the farm, not at home. I'll ask the servant to call him." Xiao Zhang said, "Madam, please ask someone to come. This spoil will eventually fester. It's not good to just let it fester. I got beaten because of him. Just now, my father ordered me to be brought out to get him. If he doesn't come out, no one will have peace, and it will be bad." Hearing this, Lin quickly asked the servant to bring out tea for everyone. Wang Sangwan was threatening like a ghost, forcing his mother to ask for favors. It was not until the most urgent moment that Lin said, "Mrs. Wen only recognizes the family of Ximon Guanfu, the Chief Justice. She once came to matchmake for his daughter in the past and is very familiar with his house." Wang Sangwan said, "Even if she recognizes Ximon Guanfu, the Chief Justice, quickly send the servant to invite him in." Lin said, "Ever since you mentioned him last time, he has been in a bad mood and has not come to visit. How can we invite him again? He refuses to come." Wang Sangwan said, "Good mother, now the matter is urgent. Please ask him to come, and I will greet him." Lin then asked Yang Dinger to quietly go out through the back door and invite Mrs. Wen in. Wang Sangwan begged him again and again, saying, "Wen Ma, you are the official of Ximon, the chief judge, please ask for a favor and save me." Wen Sao deliberately made a lot of pretentious remarks, saying, although he was a matchmaker with the eldest girl in his house in the past, no one has come to his house in recent years. The master has a large house and a courtyard, so don't bother him. Wang Sangwan knelt down and said, Wen Ma, you saved me, and I will repay you for your kindness. If those people in front are dismissed, how can I go? Wen Sao just looked at his mother, and his mother said, Well, you can ask for them. Wen Sao said, I can't go alone. Uncle San, put on your clothes, and wait for me to take you to Simon in person, at the old man's house. You go and see him and ask him to come, and I'll talk to you next time. I think it will be over in one day. Wang Sangwan said, Now he is rushing in front of us. I'm afraid he will see us, and what will happen? Wen Sao said, What's the problem? Wait for me to go out and comfort him, and then prepare some wine, meat, snacks and tea for him to eat. I will quietly lead you out through the back door, and when you come back, he won't even know about it. Wen Sao walked out of the front hall, bowed to everyone twice, and said, Madam asked me to come out and tell all the brothers. Uncle San went to the farm and is not at home. He was invited and will come soon. You should sit for a while. You are beaten and scolded, and you have caused trouble for the others. Who doesn't want to eat? Wait for Uncle San to come and let him know you. You are all different, but the people who come are the same. You just want to get things done. You are assigned by your superiors, not by yourself. With Uncle San coming out, all the big things will be done in a day. After hearing this, everyone said in unison, Wen Ma has seen a lot. If you had said such a confusing thing earlier, we wouldn't have been in such a hurry. The executioner is not at home. Is it our own fault? You have caused us to get punished by the government. Your superiors want you, but you pretend to be away. You want others to eat meat and drink for you? Wen Ma, you are reasonable. If you come out, I will give you away, break some things, and find a let's talk about it separately, and we'll be done with it. If you don't come out to see us, this matter will also be resolved. It's just a court of arrest and interrogation. And you just don't answer? Wen Sao said, Brother, you are right. Please sit down for a while. I will talk to Madam and arrange some wine and food to treat you. You must be hungry after being here for half a day. Everyone said, My Wen Ma is really good at understanding people's hardships. To be honest with you, I haven't even tasted yellow soup since I came out of the court. Wen Sao went to the back and rushed to buy 2 silver coins of wine, 1 silver coin of snacks, and several large plates of pork, mutton and beef, and took them out, while coaxing everyone to eat and drink in front. Wang Sangwan, wearing a scholar's cap and blue clothes, wrote a notice, and Wen Sao led him, put on a veil, quietly came out from the back door, and walked straight to Simon King's house. When they reached the front door, Ping Anna recognized Wen Sao and said, Dad is just in the hall. Go in. What does Wen Ma want to say? Wen Sao handed him a greeting card and said, Brother, please go and tell him. She quickly asked Wang Sangwan for 2 coins and handed them to him. Ping Anna went in and told Simon King for him. Simon King saw the greeting card, which read, My dear Wang Kai bows 100 times. He first called Wen Sao in and asked her for her reply. Then he opened the door of the hall and asked the servant to invite Wang Sangwan in. Simon King wore a Chongzhen scarf on his head and came out in plain clothes to greet her. When he saw Wang Sangwan coming in, he deliberately said, Why didn't you tell me earlier? Wen Sao, my underwear is here. He ordered his attendants, Bring my underwear. The panicked Wang Sangwan stepped forward to stop him and said, Uncle, please do as you please. How dare I, your nephew, come here to pay my respects? When they got to the hall, Wang Sangwan asked Simon King to go up and pay his respects. Simon King smiled and said, This is my guest. He refused again and again. Simon King bowed first, and Wang Sangwan said, My nephew has committed a crime. I have long admired you and I am late for your greeting. Simon King said, Please be polite to each other. Wang Sangwan asked Simon King to accept the greeting, saying, This is my nephew's family, so I should accept the greeting. Please forgive me for my late greeting. Wang Sangwan stood up and accepted the greetings. Simon King offered to sit down, and Wang Sangwan offered to sit down again, then moved his seat and sat sideways. After a while, after drinking tea, Wang Sangwan said to Simon King, My nephew has something to do, so I dare not offend your dignity. He took out a letter from his sleeve and handed it to Simon King, then got up and knelt. Simon King held him by the hand and said, What do you want to say? My dear friend, why not just say it? Wang Sangwan said, I am an incompetent nephew and I have indeed offended you. I hope you will remember that my father was a minister in the Wubian Palace and forgive my ignorant crime. Restore his integrity and spare me from office. Then my dying day will be a blessing for me to be reborn. I am so scared. So scared. Simon King unfolded the invitation card, which had the names of Xiao Zhongxian and 5 others, and said, I have already sentenced this bachelor to severe punishment in the Yamen today and pardoned him. Why do you want me to go again? Wang Sangwan said. He said that I have punished him in the Yamen and escorted him out, and I want to see the official. He has been insulting and making noise at home, extorting money and making me unable to live in peace. I have nowhere to complain, so I come to you to apologize. He handed over the invitation card again. When Simon King saw him, he said, How can this be? This bachelor is abominable. I spared him, but why did he go there to disturb others? He returned the gift to Wang Sangwan and said, Please go back. My dear friend, I will not keep you here. Now I will send someone to take this bachelor away. I will call him back someday. Wang Sangwan said, How dare I? I am grateful for your kindness. He thanked him profusely and went out. Simon King escorted him to the second gate and said, It is not good to give my underwear. Wang Sangwan went out and put on his veil, and the servant followed him. When Cao also asked Simon King for words, Simon King ordered, Don't disturb him. I will send someone to take him away. Mrs. Wen and Wang Sangwan arrived home secretly. Unexpectedly, Simon King immediately sent a section level and for platoon troops to Wang Zhaoxuan's house. The man was drinking and making noise there, but when the gentleman came in, he couldn't help but take away all the bracelets. He made everyone's faces turn pale and said, The good thing Wang Sangwan did is that he kept me at home, but made me a hoe every time I came. The section-level platoon soldier scolded, You are still talking nonsense. What are you doing? Everyone, go to Dad and ask for your life. Xiao Zhongxian said, That's what I taught you. After a while, they all got to the front door of Simon King's house. There were troops lined up at the door and Pinganer all opened their hands and asked for money before giving it to him. Everyone couldn't help but take off their trousers and tie them with hairpins on their heads. They were ready to go before they started talking. Half a day later, Simon King came out to sit in the hall and was brought in by Gigi to kneel under the hall. Simon King scolded, I treated you like a bachelor, but I will kill you. How do you accuse my yeoman of going to his house to blackmail you? How much money did you really swindle? If you don't tell me, you will have me take a hammer with you. Get up, he just said, and the platoon troops on the left and right immediately brought 5 or 6 new sticks to serve him. Xiao Zhang waited idly and just kowtowed and begged. Xiaobu didn't extort any money. He just wanted to call him from the Yamen and tell him something. His family brought out some food and wine to treat the kids, but Xiaobu didn't do anything. You need to ask for him. Simon King said, You shouldn't go to his house. You bachelors defrauded the children of good families and asked for money with nothing. It's very hateful. If you refuse to confess, you are taken to the Yamen and imprisoned. Tomorrow we will conduct a strict trial to collect confessions, and the shackles will be displayed to the public. Everyone cried out, Master Dianguan, if you give birth to a child, don't dare to come to his door to harass me anymore. I will send you to prison now. It's a cold winter here, and you're going to die every time. Simon King said, I'm going to let you go as a bachelor, but you must change your mind, and you must not stay in the hospital. He seduces other people's children and defrauds them of their property. If they come to my Yamen again, they will be beaten to death. He ordered, Get out. Everyone was killed and ran out. Exactly, crush the jade cage to fly the colorful phoenix. Suddenly open the golden lock and drive away the dragon. Simon King sent everyone away and returned to the back room. Yunyang asked, Is this the third official of Wang Zhao? Simon King said, This is the third son of Wang Zhaoxuan. He was the one Li Gaier was responsible for the incident the day before yesterday. Today's thief, the little slut, didn't change her ways, so she kept asking him for 30 taels of silver a month. She just wanted to coax me. After finding this guy, he went to the Yamen and beat him up. He didn't expect this guy to come to his house again, hoping to defraud him of a few taels of money. He just said that he had never seen an official before. So Yang Wen panicked. My sister-in-law came to me with 50 taels of gift cards to beg me for favors. I just brought that person and gave him a haircut to stop him. It was unlucky for him to have such an unworthy son. What a foundation your grandfather has. He is still doing recruitment, and you have entered the martial arts school. You don't want to do it. And you have a daughter-in-law who is like a flower in the house. You just follow these bachelors in the courtyard day and night. You are less than 20 years old and you are too young to be a master. Young said. You old crow is making fun of pigs. It turns out that the lampstand doesn't shine on you. You can do anything with water from this well. What have you done to clean up? You still have to ban people. Simon King was speechless after saying a few words. Just as the meal was being set, Lion came to report. Second Father Ying is here. Simon King said, please sit down in the study. And I will come. Wang Jing quickly opened the study door in the hall. And the Earl went in and sat down. After a long time, Simon King came out. After they finished speaking, they sat on the king, and the two of them talked. The Earl asked, Brother, you were at Brother Z's house the day before yesterday. Why did you get up so early? Simon King said, I have been engaged in business for the past few days, and I am inspecting nearby. I sent people to Tokyo to inquire about the news. Am I more idle than you? The Earl asked again, Brother, has there been anything in the Yemen in the past few days? Simon King said, Nothing. That day, the Earl said again, Wang Sangwaner said that there are 5 Xiao Zhongxians in the Yemen. On the evening of the 8th, everything was taken away from Sister Li Gui's house, except for Lao Sun and Zhu Mazi. This morning, they were taken to the Yemen and they were all beaten out. Everyone went to Zhao Shuan Mansion to harass Wang Sangwan. Why didn't you tell me? Simon King said, You idiot. Who told you this? You dare not hear it from my Yemen, but from Zhou Xiaobai's mansion? Who is in charge of this business? Simon King said, Is it because of someone from the capital? The Count said, No. Li Ming told me this morning that his whole family was frightened to death. Li Gaier has fallen asleep and hasn't gotten up yet. She was afraid that Tokyo would come to pick someone up again. When I inquired this morning, I found out that she was going to the criminal court to pick someone up. Simon King said, I haven't been to the Yemen for days. I know, Li Gaier has vowed not to pick him up and let him do whatever he wants. But why is he afraid of falling asleep? Seeing Simon King's face sulking, the Earl said, Brother, you are a human being and you are hiding this from me. Get up. Today he told me that I knew what happened to him. Why did Zhu Mazi and Lao Sen go away? Is there someone who escaped from the resting Yemen? This is me fighting with Sheep Jew. It makes Li Gaier's family afraid. If they all go to the Yemen, they will not be interested in each other. Now even Lao Sen and Zhu Mazi feel a little ashamed. Don't blame me for the plan of building the plank road. This is called a real person who doesn't show his face. If he shows his face, he is not a good person. A lot. Simon King chuckled after saying a few words and said, What great resourcefulness do I have? The Earl said, I guess there must be someone else telling me how to know all this. There is something unexpected going on. Simon King said, If you don't want others to know, you have to do nothing. The Count said, There is no need for Wang Sanger in my Yemen now. Simon King said, Who wants him to do something? When the officer was involved in the incident, I wiped out the names of Wang Sangwan, Zhu Mazi, Lao Sun, Li Gaier, and Qin Yuzi, and only used a few bachelors to beat him. Why are you still pestering him? Simon King said, Let me tell you the truth. He hopes to blackmail him for a few taels of silver. I didn't want Wang Sangwan to come to visit me and kowtow to me just now. I didn't want to accompany him. The bachelors were taken away and asked for shackles. They all begged again and said that they would not dare to bother them again. Wang Sangwan claimed that I was an old man and took 50 taels of gift cards. I would not accept his request. He will ask me to come to my house tomorrow to thank him. Isn't he really here to accompany me? Simon King said, Why don't I coax you? Take the greeting card from Wang Sangwan and see it with Yinger's father. Wang Jing took out the greeting card from the house, and it read, Wang Kaidu, the late-born king, pays his 100th greeting. When the Count saw it, he praised it highly. Brothers, the calculation is magical and unexpected. Simon King told the Count, If you see him every time, just say I don't know. I know, said the Earl. How could I tell him if the opportunity was too tight? After sitting for a while and having tea, the Earl said, "Brother, I'll go. I'm afraid that Lao Sun and Chu Mazi will get involved in the future. Just say I'm not here," Simon King said. He came right away, but I didn't see him either. At the same time, he called the generals to come and gave instructions, but the two of them only promised not to be at home. Simon King stopped going to the house with Sister Li Gui from then on, and he didn't ask Li Ming to sing when there was wine in the house, so he became indifferent. Exactly, it rained on Huanhua Creek last night. Who were the green poplars and fragrant grass?
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.